Down begins right now.
Can you see this hat pretty well?
Absolutely, looks fantastic.
Can you see the rattle the
I see
snake?
it. Yeah, I was absolutely. I was wondering about the hat.
Okay. Well, here's a short story about it. Well, does it remind you of something that maybe Ronnie Van Zant used to wear?
It absolutely does.
You're a tree.
Ah,
And so, I mean, first take, yeah, everybody, yeah, give them back
sure,
to it, you know.
sure.
Second take, same thing. Third, fourth take, man, I just held on to mine, you know.
Right.
I look over at Will and he's going, no, man, that's what they said. And of course, I know now, okay, well, he's a child. I can get away with anything today and be okay. So
the story gets out, you know, and then all of a sudden, man, they did the Nothing Fancy record. And, you know, my old man would say to us, boys, one of these days, if you boys keep doing what you're doing, you're all going to have it made in the shade.
Yeah.
So the next thing you know, Ronnie writes a song and dedicates it on the record of Made in the Shade. He dedicates it to Shorty Medlocke.
Welcome to This Town Rocks. I'm your host, Kurt Towne. On this episode, we have part 2 of my conversation with Rickey Medlocke. I had such a great time on the first one. We had so much more to give you. So stick around. This Town Rocks.
We've heard some crazy stories before. Sure. And I'm going to go to the craziest story. I mean, I've heard a lot of crazy stories in my life. And maybe by chance, the person that I'm talking about will see this podcast. And I don't know the names, which I guess is good. I don't know if they'd want me telling this and mentioning their names, but, you know, everybody has a story about a Leonard Skinner song, whether it be Freebird, Alabama, Simple Man, whatever. Oh, you know, Simple Man was played at my wedding, or, you know, Freebird was played at my grandfather's funeral, or, you know, Sweet Home Alabama was our first dance at our wedding, or, you know, whatever. Well, at a meet and greet many years ago, young lady walked up to me and wanted to, you know, to introduce herself and, you know, try to meet the band. She said, I have a great Leonard Skinner story to tell you. And I said, oh, I'm always up for one of those. And she said, well, to be quite blunt, I was conceived during Freebird.
Oh, my
gosh. So I just looked at her and I said, your parents conceived you during Freebird. Now, granted, she's not that old. She wasn't that old. I mean, you know, by standards of, you know, whatever. And she said, yeah, I was conceived during Freebird, you know, while you guys were playing.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Well, I get to thinking back to myself that this girl looked 15, 16 years old. And I'm thinking, my God, that was right around the time that, I'm thinking back already, putting the numbers together, thinking, my God, that's after I joined the band the second time. Okay. Because now I've been with the band about 25 years. So that's, this story is about 10 years old, 9 years old, something like that. And I said, you got to be kidding me. She goes, no, my parents have already told me that Freebird was playing, and the ending part. And she goes, I guess the way my dad explained it was, and my mom kind of smiled. Yeah, we found a good hiding place. And the faster the song went, the faster I went.
Oh man!
Oh boy, that is so funny to me, man.
Oh.
And I kind of, kind of looked at her. I said, boy, during the galloping part, your dad must have kicked in overdrive.
Oh,
anyway,
man.
that's probably the funniest Leonard Skinner story I've ever heard. I mean, I've heard a ton of them, but that one really comes to mind, so there you go.
That's awesome. Oh my God. Well, man, I gotta ask you. So back in the Blackfoot days, right? What were some of the names of the bands that you had before Blackfoot? So I remember.
That's easy. So, Blackfoot was formed out of two bands.
Okay.
Here's the way it went. Greg and I grew up, right down the street from each other on Detroit Street.
Yep.
And so did Jack, Well, we all kind of, got out of school and everybody was doing their own thing and stuff. And so, contrary to, what my old man said, that I was going to leave Jacksonville right away, I didn't leave Jacksonville right away. I stayed in Jacksonville. So Greg said to me one day, he said, I know a guy that plays, we knew this keyboard player. His name was Ronnie Cheverossi. And he lived in Jacksonville. And sure enough, man, he was a great piano player. He could play all the Doors stuff and, anything out there that had keyboards in it, he could play it. And he had one of those really cool blonde Wurlitzer pianos. And it sounded great through a Leslie and all that stuff, Well, we got together and jammed, the three of us, and it felt good. And Ronnie said, I know a guy down at the comic book club. His name is Charlie Hargrave. And he's probably one of the best guitar players, around. And we were like, really? Yes. Well, let's get a hold of him and let's get together. So we got a hold of Charlie, and Charlie come over to the house where we were rehearsing. And first song that we played was Badge by Cream.
Wow.
And Charlie played the lead note for note. And so we decided, hey, let's get a band up. Let's work up a lot of material. And talk to Bob, who was the manager down at the comic book club. Let's talk to him and let's go down and see if we can't start playing the comic book club. So that's what we did. We got a hold of Charlie. Charlie come over and jammed. We played. It worked out really good. And the next thing you know, we kind of became a steady house band. there at the comic book club. As a matter of fact, in the summer of '69, when they landed on the moon, which a lot of people say they didn't land on the moon, but anyway, when they landed on the moon, Bob come up to us on the bandstand and said, "You guys want to take a break? They're about ready to land on the moon.
Wow.
Come on in the office and watch it." Yeah, we'll watch it. So we were playing the comic book club steady. Well, Jack and another high school friend of ours named DeWitt Gibbs, they had a guitar player named Jerry, and his last name slips me, but they were a three-piece band. And DeWitt was an incredible piano organ player, and what he did was, instead of them having a bass player, he played bass pedals and did incredible on it. I mean, this guy could be playing the piano part here with this hand, organ part here with this hand, playing the bass pedals with his left foot, operating the volume pedal, and singing at the same damn time.
Oh, my God.
And then he would get up and walk off stage and fall flat on his face. He'd trip over chords and bust his head,
Right.
Well, what happened was they were called Tangerine.
Ah, okay.
And the name of our band was named after a Spirit tune because we were big Spirit fans. We named our group Fresh Garbage.
Right.
Well, there's a song by Spirit called Fresh Garbage.
Right.
Well, we would see DeWitt, I'd see Jack come in, man. It was always good to see Jack. And also they were playing over in Gainesville at a club over there called Dubs.
Love Dubs. Loved it.
Yeah, Dubs Steer Room,
Loved it.
And this was during the old days when on Thursday night they had the wet T-shirt contest. And the college girls would come down there and,
Right.
actually it ended up being a topless contest,
Right.
But we got to kicking around the idea one day at a music store, Paulus Music.
Love Paul's, yep.
We all were down there and we got to kicking around the idea. What if we merged the two bands together? And that's when they said, well, what we'll do is we'll kick Jerry out of our band and y'all kick your keyboard player out of your band. And, the three of you guys and the two of us guys will merge together and form a group. Okay, that's what we did. And we started rehearsing, learning, all kind of cover tunes, and really wanted to get into writing original songs. Well, the first name that we came up with was a name called Hammer, and spelled it just like HAMMER.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept it for a while. Then the next thing you know, we found out there was an English group called Hammer. We were like, gosh, now we got to change our name, But we kept Hammer for a while. And soon we got signed, supposedly by this record company that was a part of Columbia Records. It was Bell Records. And Bell Records, this girl, and I'm not going to say the name, I don't want to mention her name,
Sure.
but we met her in Gainesville and she was at the college. Her parents and her folks were from Gainesville and she was working up in New York at Bell Records. She saw us and wanted us to come up there. Well, we came up. We told Dub we were going to New York City. We were going to make it big, So we loaded everything up at the end of the year, and here we went, all 5 of us. Well, when we got there, everything wasn't as it had been told to us. We ended up living in the East Village at this girl's apartment, flat. There's 5 of us, 1 of her, 6 of us living in this small 1-bedroom flat. And pardon me. And so we made do with it. We're in New York City and we're living in the East Village. I mean, this is 1969.
Right.
And the village is happening. You had the Electric Circus right next door to us, 3 doors down. You had the Fillmore East was 1 block down, 2 blocks over. Man, and the village was happening. You had, on any given day, you could see, you know, Bob Dylan walking the streets, or, you know, Hendrix before, you know, he passed away. And I mean, it was just choice.
Wow.
So there we went. All right. The next thing you know, make a real long story short. We ended up moving out of the city and moved out into the country of New Jersey. DeWitt got real discouraged with being in the band and not having any money and, you know, so forth and so on. So he quits. And he went down to North Carolina and joined a band, cover band. Well, it was the 4 of us then. Well, I took up playing guitar and singing. And then we knew we had to change our name again. So what did we do? We changed our name to Free. And next thing you know, we see a record come out. And we hear this song on the radio, All Right Now by Free. I went, oh. I mean, we were like, you gotta be kidding. Jack came up with the idea. Since a couple of us were native and, you know, had native blood in us, how about if we call the band Blackfoot? And we liked the way it sounded. It stuck with us. And that's where it came from. So we were Hammer, we were Free, and then we were Blackfoot.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I know you were talking about Gainesville earlier, and I remember Mickey told me a story one time about you and Tom Petty and Tommy Petty in the playpen. You know that story? Do you know that?
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, she hears this squalling, and Tommy Petty's biting your hand or something, and you're going, ah! And she goes and separates you two. And she said, I still can't believe little Tommy Petty, little quiet Tommy Petty grew up to be Tom Petty. And that's one of my favorite stories.
Well, it was pretty interesting because, you know, Skinner, when they were called the 1%, and Mudcrutch, who was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers later on, but Mudcrutch, and us, Fresh Garbage, and then later on, you know, the 5 of us merged together and had Hammer. You know, we used to play on the lawn at the college outside, all of us together. And, you know, we would set up one PA and 3 bands would use it. And maybe if there was some other bands that wanted to get up and jam, same thing. But yeah, we worked around Tom. And I tried to get a chance to see him in Atlanta here not too many years ago. They were in Atlanta playing, and his guitar player came down, and, you know, I hadn't seen him in a while. And I walked up and reintroduced myself, and, you know, he kind of didn't want to, you know, to talk and so forth and so on. I said, all right. You know, I just thought I'd say hey, strike up a conversation, you know, but it'd been a while, you know, we hadn't seen the guys at all during his heyday. And during our heyday. So, you know, that's the way things happen.
Sure. You remember Lipham's Music in Gainesville, right?
Lipham, yep.
Okay. So at one point, Tom Petty worked there. Bernie Ledden worked there. This is all at the same
That's
time.
right.
Yep. And then Dave Mason, Stephen Stills,
That's right.
and Don Felder all at the same time. Those 5 guys at the same time. So
Yep.
Larry and Buster, remember Buster, he was telling me about it, but Larry Lipham was telling me about it. He's told me some great stories about that whole time. But it's amazing to think that just at that one music store, just at Paula's music store, or Marvin K's, I believe. I didn't get to go into Marvin K's downtown, but know a lot of stories about it. And American Music, you know, on the west side, all those music stores, so much talent going through those music stores, Music City, all of it was awesome.
Well, you did have a lot of there we go again. I mean, you know, what was it about? You think back, and what was it about that area? What was it about North Florida, Jacksonville, Gainesville, Orlando, Tampa, with having the Outlaws? And I mean, my God, man, it was the most unbelievable thing to have that many talented people running around, that you know, that talented, and so many of them.
Yeah.
I just find it amazing to me. In one place like that, you could have had so many bands. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, you know, to think that you guys were, you know, with all that, I've seen the pictures of you guys playing the Stables, I believe it was, with you on drums, with Skinner, and all the people out. It's such a cool thing that people just loved music, which they still love music, and it's just everybody comes together for music. It's really awesome.
I feel so blessed and fortunate that I lived when I did, because I lived in some absolutely magical times in this country and in this business that I'm in.
Yeah.
The music, it was virgin territory back then. Nowadays, every song that can be written has been written.
Yeah.
10 times over, you know. So, I guess, Kurt, I want everybody to be safe. I want everybody to be well. I sure want everybody to be happy and prosper, and
Absolutely.
you know, make their way in life. Let's all, you know, at nighttime before we go to sleep, say a little word and hope that it happens. You know.
I agree. I gotta ask you one thing before we go though. One more story, because it's really special to me. But I was with you guys. It'll forever be the Gator Bowl to me. But I was with you guys. 50,000 screaming fans. The electricity was unbelievable in the air, and I had a bird's eye view with Larry, with LJ and Thania. But it was a magical time. I was so proud watching you guys play Jacksonville. It was 50,000 people on their feet. I mean, coming from playing the comic book club to what will forever be the Gator Bowl, right? What was going through your head with all that? I mean, I know I was back there and I saw you, but you guys were in a very, you know, magical place. Like I said, the energy was unreal, and there was a lot of things with the weather and all that, but you guys were persevering and going on with the show. What was that like, walking on that stage, knowing that you had played the comic book club and all those things to get to where you were with 50,000 people thanking you guys for playing Jacksonville?
Well, I can probably, it was almost euphoric. looking out there and seeing that many people that wanted to see us play our hometown, and knowing that we came from there and history was there of the band. And I remember, that day, thinking, boy, the weather's not good, and it's, man, what is it going to cause problems? And, and we had been there for so long, we were so tired. But boy, as soon as everything, that intro tape started, it's like we all came alive. We just pushed everything else aside. And I remember just for myself thinking, wow, I started out in Jacksonville as a small child of 3 years old playing a banjo with my granddaddy on a TV show. And doing that until I was 8. And in the midst of that, learned how to play guitar at 5 and drums at 8. And, had graduated right on up through the ranks and stuff. And I remember my whole life in Jacksonville in one instant just flashed before my eyes. And the next thing I knew, with that happening, I was walking out on stage and starting the show. And I'll be real honest with you right now, it was such a euphoric thing, I barely can't even remember it right now. I remember, what I do remember is that I remember, and I do this every night anyway, but I remember standing there playing Freebird, with Johnny singing, and then me and Gary walking up to the microphone where Ronnie's hat is for the third verse, and Ronnie coming up on the video screen behind us singing. I remember Gary and I looking at each other. And Gary looked up from his hat and winked at me, and we looked up at Ronnie, man, and it was just like all of a sudden he was standing there with us, and it was a compadre. It was a real togetherness in a very strange sort of way. More so that night than really that is every night when we do it. And when we do it every night and Ronnie comes up, it gives me the chills, and me and Gary stand there looking at each other and smiling and knowing that and listening to him sing. But that night was really different. It was, for me, I was just head to toe was chill bumps. And at the very end of it all, man, I mean, I looked out into that audience and I took it all in, and I do that every night anyway. During Freebird, I take it all in and put it away in my storage bank so I can remember it. And when I'm at home, think back on it and remember it. But that night, I've got it stored away now, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And it's one of those things that I don't, till the good Lord calls me home, I'll remember every day for the rest of my life. I won't ever forget that one. It was very special in my heart. Stacy was next, was side stage over here, next, watching me, with a couple of the gals from Kid Rock Band, and she could see it, she could see it, and I'll I don't know if he will really want me saying this.
No.
but I'm going to say it anyway.
Oh, boy.
So, we're getting ready to go on stage, and it's before I put my guitar on. And Doug, the coach for the Jaguars, is standing next to me. And, boy, the crowd's going nuts, and all of a sudden, the AC/DC tune starts. And, of course, you know the announcement, coming up, Leonard Skinner, you know, and the crowd just is going, you know, ape, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Coach, Doug is standing here next to me, and he looks over at me and he goes, Rickey, well, I wish we could put this kind of people in the stadium. And I looked back at him, I said, hey, you start winning some games, you will.
Oh, oh man.
So, Doug, if you have to see this, and I told this story, I'm sorry up front, but I had to say that.
Well, man, I just wanted to thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I want you to know how proud I am of you. I hope you know that. I've always been proud of you. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, all right. You bet, man. And, you know, Kurt, I know that you've been kicking it for many years, and you've done well, my friend. Maybe you didn't reach the kind of plateau that you wanted to reach and so forth, but you made it anyway. You did.
Thank you.
In a great way, you made it, and you're still making it. And that's the key secret to it, man, is the longevity and the perseverance and the drive. You get what I'm saying?
I do. I appreciate that.
And you are a fine guitar player. I've told you that for many years.
Thank you.
You are a fine guitar player. You got a fine family.
Thank you.
You got a darling sweetheart of a wife.
Yep.
And believe me, brother, you've made it. And you know what? My hat's off to you.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I love you, buddy, and thank you so much.
Love you too, brother. You bet.
All right, man. I can't wait for us to go fishing.
Let's go.
All right, man. Thank you, buddy. I'll see you later.
I'll see you, brother. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Everything that was done then, people are trying to do now. We're just trying to add on to the foundation of that.
Take it away.
Strat has always had a sound within, itself. It's the root of all music that'll always be relevant.
I just love this guitar.
It's just something about it that when you hear it, it just takes you to another place. It's classic, it never gets old, and it just feels good.
I think I take from the past just by trying to play with the same groove and feel. You end up finding your own self playing the instruments.
Once again, I'd like to thank my guest and buddy Rickey Medlocke. I had a great time. I love the stories. Thank you so much for the kind words. I can't wait to see you again on the road, my friend. If you like this show, and I know you did, like, share, and subscribe. Don't miss next week's episode on This Town Rocks.
You put me out on the side street. It's a cold war on the concrete. And baby, your love is so bitter.